You wrote the book Fighting Chance, How Unexpected Observations and Unintended Outcomes Shape the Science and Treatment of Depression. But you're not a medical professional, as you mentioned in your book. You're a retired Major General, a former Vice Director of the U.S. Defense Information System Agency. So why write this book about depression?
I wrote this book because people like me should be able to understand. You shouldn't have to be a medical professional in order to understand what's going on in someone who's really suffering. So for me, it was prompted by my experience with a longtime friend. We've been friends for 30 or 35 years now. And a little more than 10 years before I retired from the Air Force, she developed depression. She became suicidal. She was in and out of hospitals with suicidal ideation and suicide attempts. And it was a complete departure from the person that I had known for, at that point, about 20 years. So I watched this going on for the last 10 years of my Air Force career and just wondering what was going on. But more than that, I was afraid to interact with her. I was afraid I would say something or do something or fail to say or do something, and she would kill herself.
Oh, my gosh.
So I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to know what depression was.
So you could better talk about it.
So I could talk about it. I could talk to her. I could hopefully help her. I mean, that was, of course, what I'd love to do, to help her.
You spoke to so many people about their personal experiences with different levels of different types of mental disorders or disease. I took away, too, that we need to really decide, is disease is when we know what is causing it, but disorder?
Right. Disorder, there is something that is messing with your life. And disease, I think it's, I don't know, kind of, yes, in order to call it a disease, we need to know what causes it. To me, like, okay, I will accept that is the definition, and I'll put it in the book as that's the definition of disease. Disorder means that it's not only that you read about the symptoms of depression, what depression involves. So, of course, you have the really sad mood or loss of pleasure in everything. Those are key. One of those has to be present. But then people also either often sleep too much or they can't sleep. They eat too much or they can't eat. They have trouble remembering things. Their minds, just won't work. It's, a whole slew of symptoms. So you could have some of those symptoms and just be living your life and doing fine. It's a disorder when there's enough and it's bad enough that it's messing with your life. So
you're not functioning the way you used to.
Yeah, you're just not functioning, and it matters. It's like your family's falling apart, or you're doing really poorly at your job, and you're worried about your job, or that like you stop eating and stop sleeping enough that you're physically ill as well as mentally. So,
overall, for us, can you describe why someone should read your book?
They should read my book because they would greatly benefit from understanding better what happens to people with mental illness, but also what happens to themselves. Someone like me, I think I do not have the genetic inheritance. I do not have the early life adversity that would make me more vulnerable to something like depression. But when I'm undergoing chronic stress, when I'm not exercising, not eating well, those same sorts of changes are happening in my brain as well. So I think that reading the book gives people a better understanding of people with depression, but also of themselves.